we have a podcast.
Diving deep into all things Texans, both on and off the field. Here's Sean Pendergast and Pro Football Hall of Famer, the General, John McClain. Welcome to Houtopia.
Hey, everybody. Welcome in the Houtopia Football Podcast. We got a lot of stuff to get to on the show today. Great to be with you. It is playoff time, and the Houston Texans are in the dance. We will we'll do a more hardcore preview of the Browns and the Texans on our Thursday episode this week, as we always do. But we got some general news and notes to get to. We have some actual news from the Texans that we're going to get into as well. And, of course, we've got a handful of your mailbag questions that we'll sink our teeth into as well on the podcast today. I'm Sean Pendergast, one half of Payne and Pendergast on Sports Radio 610, and I am joined, as always, by my good friend, the Hall of Famer, and our senior columnist at sportsradio610.com, John McClain. John, how are you?
I'm great. People in Houston, Indianapolis, and Jacksonville are rejoicing because the Titans fired Mike Vrabel, one of the best coaches in the NFL. Now he's out of the division. That'll be good for the other teams, including the Texans. I thought it was a terrible mistake.
Yeah, why? Okay, and we're going to get into the Texans stuff here in a second, but I'm glad you brought this up because you're right, this does affect the Texans because they play Tennessee twice a year and they're in the division with them. Why did they fire him, John?
I have no idea. I don't know who the owner, Amy Adams Strunk, consulted before she did it, just like when she fired her general manager, John Robinson, during the season last year. There was never an explanation given that I heard from anybody on or off the record. And I know Adam Schefter said she was unhappy with the division record because it had been really bad over the last 2 years. Well, it was bad because the team was bad. The offensive line was awful. They had one receiver, DeAndre Hopkins. They lost Jeffrey Simmons for the year. They got rid of Kevin Bayard, their best defensive back. And they lost, I think, 6 games by 3 points. I thought he did a better job than he was when he was coach of the year 2 years ago when they had home field advantage in the playoffs.
Yeah, the tweet, all the tweets I've seen, like reporting this firing, John, have been like, Mike Vrabel fired, immediately shoots to the top of the list of available coaches. I'm like, okay, well, something's wrong here. If you fired somebody and the reports are he's now an A-list candidate for all the other openings out there, you probably did the wrong thing, I would say, right?
I would think most people up there think it was the wrong thing. He'd had a lot of critics, but anybody that didn't know that roster, the draft choices that John Robinson had. John Robinson traded A.J. Brown. He didn't want him traded. Treylon Burks was drafted. He hadn't done it anywhere near an impersonation of A.J. Brown. So it's not Vrabel's fault, the fact that they played so many close games, including losing to the Texans on Kaimi Fairbairn's 54-yard field goal with no time left in overtime, to me is a testimonial to the good job he did going 6-11.
John, last thing on the Titans here. That's a team now where I would blindly, without even seeing what the number is, I would take the under on wins for the Titans next year. That's got the makings for. I mean, every year there's a 2-14 team, a couple of 3-13, or you know what I mean. However many 17 games, 2-15, 3-14, a few 4-win teams. Like that's the level they're gonna. I am supremely confident that the Titans are going to be on that level next year. They were already trending in that direction. Now Derrick Henry's gone. Tannehill's going to be gone. It's going to be the Will Levis show with his second offensive coordinator in 2 years. We don't even know how good Levis was to begin with. And yeah, Vrabel was the one kind of head coach that always seemed to do more with less. And those are hard guys to find, John, especially, brand new guys coming in like that. I think that's the Titans team. I would blindly bet under. I'm guessing their total will be like 6 or something, 5.5, 6, something like that next year. I'd go under. That feels like a 3 or 4 win team.
Another thing they did was when Baltimore was a top seed, they upset Baltimore in the playoffs. And but anyway, and new coach, he may not like Will Levis. He may have had Will Levis graded lower, and he may want a new quarterback up there. He may want to go with a veteran. You never know. Rand Cawthorn, who just finished his first season as general manager. There were things in the media up there that they didn't get along. Well, a lot of coaches and GMs don't get along when it comes to personnel decisions, and as long as they don't make it personal and keep it professional. But there was another report by a longtime guy who covered the team, said Vrabel wanted them to hire somebody over him and Cawthorn to have final say on personnel, because it looks like neither one of them had it in his contract that he had final say, and that's not good.
All right, John. So yeah, that's big news. Mike Vrabel getting fired. That gives us 6 openings plus whatever the hell's going on in New England right now, by my count. So that's actually a good lead in. Bobby Slowik, the Texans offensive coordinator, has already gotten 2 requests for interviews, and there may be more coming. Who knows? But Carolina and Washington both putting in requests to interview Bobby Slowik. John, I tweeted this yesterday. DeMeco Ryans in 1 year has officially had more of his offensive assistants requested for head coaching interviews than Bill O'Brien had his offensive assistants requested through 6 years as the head coach here.
No requests last year for Pep Hamilton, huh?
No, not that no Pep Hamilton. Yep. He's already exceeded Lovie Smith and David Culley as well. Yes.
And Slowik began his career in quality control with Washington under Mike Shanahan. That's how he met Kyle. There's no way they're going to hire Bobby Slowik. They want somebody to hit a home run, a name, whether it was Bill Belichick or Jim Harbaugh or Mike Vrabel. They're trying to get a stadium built. And Bobby's not stupid. He's not going to go work for David Tepper. I believe Bobby Slowik, like DeMeco Ryans, like Kevin O'Connell of Minnesota, will do, and like last year, Ben Johnson of the Lions, will do an interview or two and then decide, I need another year as a play caller. And I think he'll be back next season. I've been saying that all along. I think then after next season, because we got to think they're probably going to still be good and better, maybe even better. He might have better offers, more offers, and then I think he'll be gone, and Dry Johnson will be elevated to offensive coordinator. I see a lot of lame brains out there saying you got to have an offensive head coach. And I'm thinking, okay, they think because if your offense plays well, your coordinator is going to get a head coaching job. Well, that means he's left you in really good shape. And there are some defensive coordinators around the league, Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll, Sean McDermott, Mike Vrabel, now DeMeco, that are doing quite well. Matt Eberflus finished well. The key is just to have a good offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, whether you were an offensive head coach or not. And so I think Bobby will be head coach next year. Probably be more than just Bobby Slowik off this staff, eventually be head coaches.
Yeah, I would encourage him to take every interview he gets asked to go on, just to get the experience of interviewing. And what it's like to sit across from an owner. And that way, when you really do want the job, or when, when you feel you are ready, then the interviewing part will be, that'll feel second nature to you. That can be a strange environment if you haven't been in it before. I would encourage him to take the interviews. I think too, John, I love Bobby Slowik. I think he's done an awesome job this year. I don't know that we're going to wind up with as many openings as people thought. There were only 5 last year, so everybody thought, there's only 5 last year. That means this year there's going to be 9 or 10 or whatever. We're at 6 now. New England is this weird sort of thing over in the corner. If it's a job market that has Bill Belichick, Jim Harbaugh, and Mike Vrabel, all 3 out there, I feel like that's 3 jobs already taken. So now, and I feel like Ben Johnson's going to get one too. That it feels like he's the best coordinator name out there, the guy that can take his pick of a job, which leaves 3 jobs. I don't know. I'm not sure if the musical chairs are going to do Bobby Slowik any favors if he were to want the job. And I'm with you. I think your overall take is a good one, which is ultimately he probably comes back, A, for a little more seasoning, and B, the Texans have a chance to do some really special things next year too.
And he knows he needs more play calling than one season. I think when they see Bobby, he's 36 going on 16.
Yeah.
David Tepper probably think, well, I can bounce him on my knee and pull the strings and he'll do everything I tell him. And that's a job I'm most intrigued to see what happens. Not New England, not the Raiders, not the Chargers. I can't wait to see which coach is dumb enough to go to work for David Tepper. Which coach is going to be the next interim coach, one of his coordinators. Because that man, unless he has a total lobotomy and all of a sudden decides to operate like the McNair, stay out of it, give them the money they need, and then stay out. He fired his GM, Scott Fitterer, as well. And I know there's only 32 of those jobs, but I would be shocked if Bobby Slowik were to go to the Carolina Panthers.
Someone's going to take it. I mean, someone's going to want a payday. You know, it's a big payday. So someone's going to.
Frank Rich is available.
Frank Rich. Listen
Frank Reich, what do you call it?
Reich. I don't know, but it was disrespectful.
It wasn't right, that's for sure.
Whatever it was.
And that's
it
what they're going to have to get. A coach who's been another head coach fired somewhere is desperate to come back. A retread. Exactly. Yep, retread. That's not going to get anybody fired up. And one of the things coming out of Carolina from the knowledgeable media people, and this, I could see this from the get-go. They had too many people talking to Bryce Young. Frank Reich, and they had Jim Caldwell, and then they had
Josh
McCown, and then whoever was the offensive coordinator.
Thomas Brown.
First-time coordinator. It was just too many cooks in that kitchen.
Well, hopefully, for Bryce's sake, that changes, but what a mess that is in Carolina. So now you're talking, John, of the 4 top drafted quarterbacks in this past draft, 2 of them are going to be going on their second coach and offensive coordinator in 2 years. In Bryce Young's case, it'll be like 3 because he had an interim for a little while as well. But Bryce Young, the first pick, Will Levis, the 33rd pick, both going to be going on second coaches in their second year. And CJ, what a perfect marriage for CJ's sake and the Texans' sake. Just incredible.
And if you think about it, Bryce Young ran a pro offense under Bill O'Brien with Alabama. So that'd be a fourth terminology, 4th system already. And that's a recipe for disaster for quarterbacks who are young. The worst thing you can do is keep changing coaches and systems and terminology. It's hard enough to play anyway, but that's what happens when you have owners who are quick on the trigger, listen to the wrong people, or just don't know what they're doing.
Yep. All right, John, we're going to get to general news and notes in a second. We're going to get to the mailbag as well. If you want to email the mailbag for next time, houmailbag@gmail.com. John, Nick Caserio was on with me and Seth this morning, and we asked him about the rumors that had popped up last week that he would be open to going back to New England. A Jason La Canfora article, it's probably all that needs to be said, but a Jason La Canfora article where he quoted an opposing GM that said, oh, yeah, he would go back there. Trust me, and we all had the same reaction you did, John, but we asked Nick about that this morning. He had to address stuff like this last year, too, at about this time. He went in. I mean, he was, I don't know if you saw or heard the cut, but he was angry. I've got some of the words he used in the 90 seconds that he went off on this. Jackass statement is what he said that general manager, he said someone making a jackass statement that it's silly season. Offhanded statement, out of left field, zero validity, ridiculous, zero basis. Those were all things that he said within 90 seconds. That was as heated as I've ever seen or heard Nick Caserio, who never gets heated about anything. He was none too happy with the rumors, and he made it very, very clear. He is very excited, understandably so, about the opportunity that he is currently working with right now.
Wish he was that good when he talks to us, because he's never, ever talk like that.
We bring out the best in him, John.
This goes back to before the draft when I had 2 prominent national people call me and tell me they heard Caserio's going back to New England after the draft. And I said, well, there's a couple problems with that. Number one, Bill Belichick has total control, and he couldn't wait to get out of there. And he tried to come here 3 times, and it was 3rd time was a charm because the rule changed. So he's not going back there with Belichick. But people up there think that everybody wants to work there because they won all those Super Bowls with Brady. Nobody in their right mind is going to want to replace Bill Belichick. You just don't. And maybe Mike Vrabel will go back. He'd be the perfect one because he is beloved up there and he won rings and he's in their Hall of Fame. And he would be the ideal replacement, especially since he could get a quarterback he wants in the draft. But the Caserio thing just won't die. And it's all because of people in the East. And maybe that GM did tell Nola Confirma that he thinks that's true because he's heard that. People don't just make up stories. They get them from somewhere. Usually it's agents. But I'm so glad Nick shot it down with you and Seth, because maybe people now will drop it, because he's got a great situation. He's got the coach he likes, the quarterback he likes. He's got cap money. He's just finished his 3rd year of a 6-year contract. He's got a $5 million bonus if they win the Super Bowl. He's got to feel a whole lot better about that now than he has any other time since he got to Houston.
Hold up, back up. I had not heard that. He's got a $5 million bonus if they win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, 5 years, $30 million with an extra 5 Super Bowl bonus. I think that's what it was.
Okay, well, that's that is a pretty tasty reason.
It may have to do with winning each tier.
Sure.
To win the Super Bowl, I'm not sure, but he's got a humongous bonus if they win the Super Bowl.
That's outstanding.
And that looked pretty safe when he got here, because they knew they're going to have to tear the whole thing down and start over. But right now, yes, and he's feeling pretty good about it.
John, to leave here to go anywhere, honestly, like I think, after the season's over, they're gonna be those articles that come out where they take, a guy like Bill Barnwell will do an article where they start to look at the teams, not just how they're looking going into 2024, but what the next 3 or 4 years look like for them. You know what I mean? Like these are the foundational pieces they have. This is the draft capital. This is the cap space. Here's what the division looks like. If you were to just call it a 3-year outlook, because 3 years is forever in the NFL, to wit, the Texans are in the playoffs this year. If you did a 3-year outlook for the Texans, I think you'd have a hard time finding like 5 teams that have a better outlook than the Texans over the next 5 years, considering CJ Stroud on a rookie contract, hottest head coach, the hottest head coach under 40, let's call it, like young, rising head coach, owners that just want to pour money into it and just stay the hell away. Draft capital galore, cap space galore. I don't like it's completely irrational for anybody to think that any GM, barring personal reasons, would want to leave here to go almost anywhere else, given their choice.
When I was watching the snow on Belichick on the sideline Sunday, I'm thinking, sure, you can't wait to get back up there while it's 65 bright sunshine here. The Texans arrow is definitely pointing up. And I thought when you said that, maybe about the Lions, because the Lions started their turnaround midway through the 2022 season, and now they've won their division. But they could lose both their coaches, and then you got to make sure you have good ones. Philadelphia lost both its coaches, and that hadn't worked out so well for the Eagles. But I think that this is the first time that Hannah, Janice, and Cal McNair can go, whew.
Yeah.
And relax and just enjoy the fruits of their labor, and hiring Caserio, and then signing off when he recommended D'Amico and drafting Stroud and the trade for Will Anderson Jr.
They have trust from Nick Caserio on down that they can just let the football operation go do its thing. Just go be the best version of you, and that might be good enough to win a Super Bowl.
I have a column on sportsradio610.com talking about a great example of them. Their management style is in the game Saturday, while D'Amico and the players and the coaches were jumping around like crazy. Caserio was nowhere to be seen, and you had to look real hard in the back of the room to find Cal McNair and Hannah McNair, where a lot of owners be in there jumping around with them. I think that's perfect kind of management style they have, which is stay in the background.
Irsay would have been in there with his hands doing Texans swarm. D'Amico be giving his speech there like, hey, man, this is what it's all about. We punched our ticket. And Irsay be like, let me jump in there, D'Amico. You're right. It's all about punching a ticket. Like the time I punched a ticket to the Copa. We were in the back doing lines, man. It was crazy.
The Cowboys, if they get into the Super Bowl, you think Jerry Jones not going to be in the middle of that locker room celebrating?
Jerry's going to give the game ball to himself. That's what's going to happen. All right. So we're all happy. Nick Caserio kicking around as the GM of the Houston Texans. Good stuff. You can find the podcast of the full Caserio interview. We did about 40 minutes with him, commercial free today. You can find it on the podcast on the very Audacy app. You might be listening to this on wherever you get your podcasts. It's on the Payne and Pendergast podcast. All right, John, general news and notes, and then we'll do a mailbag. What do you have for the people today?
I have a column that I'm going to do on this on Wednesday, and I looked up some stuff Joe Flacco was a rookie in '08, first-round pick. And when he was drafted, Stroud was 7. Colin's going to be about the new and the old. And when he played his last season in Baltimore, Stroud was in high school. He was in last. And then when Stroud had his last season, where he threw for more touchdown passes than he has in 5 games, CJ was a freshman playing behind Justin Fields at Ohio State. And also, CJ Stroud is the third quarterback, not third rookie, but the third quarterback to lead the NFL in average passing yards a game and touchdown to interception ratio. Now, I don't know if you've heard of these other 2 guys. Their names Montana and Brady.
Montana in 1989 and Brady in the year they went undefeated in the regular season and lost to the Giants.
Yep. Now, one of the players who's going to have to play great against Amari Cooper is Derek Stingley Jr. Derek Stingley Jr. has been mostly fantastic since he came back from that stint on injured reserve with a hamstring injury. But in that game against the Browns, his receiver was targeted 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
They had 3 catches, 43 yards, 1 touchdown. He had an interception, and the rating against him was 109.4. So Derek Stingley, like all the DBs, has got to play better against Joe Flacco Saturday afternoon.
That's saying something, because I was watching a video before you and I started recording, John, an NFL.com preview of the game that is very stat heavy. And Stingley's got one of the best passer rating against of cornerbacks for the season anywhere in the league. He's given up a passer rating this year of like 54.5, like some ridiculously low number. Stingley's been excellent since he came back midway through the season. And yeah, that was, and you said 3 catches in that for 43 yards against him.
3 catches, 43 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and a rating of 109.4.
Yeah, at least 2 of those were Cooper, because the touchdown was Cooper. And Cooper also caught that 4th down. Remember when the Texans still had kind of like a glimmer of hope towards the end of the game? Like they managed to cobble their way back into the game, and they were onside kicking and things like that. There was a point with about 4 minutes to go in regulation where the Browns had a 4th down, and they went for it because they had no kicker. They could have kicked a field goal that would have made it a 17-point game, but they had no kicker because Dustin Hopkins pulled his hamstring. So they went for it on 4th and 8, and Cooper beat Stingley for a first down. So at least 2 of those 3 were Amari Cooper going against Derek Stingley. I hope this whole defense, John, has a bug up their ass about what happened in that Week 16 game. They got embarrassed. I hope that this is where I hope like DeMeco Ryans knows exactly how to embarrass adults. You know what I mean? Like exactly how to make them feel appropriately terrible about Week 16, but in a motivational way for them to come out good in Week 19. You know what I mean?
Well, their run defense was great. Couldn't have been better, but they stunk it up against the Colts, of course. I got one more from Pro Football Focus.
Okay.
Now, going over the last 4 games, now edge rushers, and Jonathan Grenard should not be included in here because he didn't play enough. But Myles Garrett has the best grade from Pro Football Focus, 93.1. And there's a tie for second with 90.7, and one of them is Jonathan Grenard. But the other one, Derek Barnett. Derek Barnett in the last 4 games has a rating of 90.7, tied for second among edge rushers behind Myles Garrett. That shows you the kind of bang for the bucks they're getting from Derek Barnett, who's earning him some money.
Yeah, John, it's scary to think about this defense. If they hadn't made the pickup of Barnett, T.R. Tart, who we know is going to probably get some snaps again this week, and Kareem Jackson got a few more snaps in the last game. You know, with that lack of depth they have at safety, Kareem Jackson's going to wind up probably playing some important snaps for this team somewhere along the way here through this playoff run, but especially Barnett. I mean, Barnett's looked like a guy they signed in free agency to a decent contract in the offseason. They got him off the waiver wire in like week 10 or something like that.
He looks like he was a first-round pick of the Philadelphia Eagles because he's played so much better here than he played there, and they could use him right now because their defensive line has been terrible in this terrible closing stretch that the Eagles have had in crunch time. What's scary about this Cleveland game if Grenard's out again, if Will Anderson's almost helpless like he was against the Colts because of his ankle injury, Jerry Hughes left. If he can't come back, Dylan Horton's been on IR forever. So that's 4 ends. Then other than Derek Barnett, who's going to play in? They're going to have to get a big push from those tackles.
Majai Sanders, I guess, would be the other body that's out there.
I'd think about putting one of those tackles out there.
Yeah, maybe. All right, let's
that's
John,
all the news and notes.
Good news and notes, John. No, that was good stuff. I love anytime you come with CJ Stroud compared to generational Hall of Famers. Like he and two other basically statues, and
one of them's not in the Hall of Fame. Only one of them's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
Go
thank
Montana.
you, John.
Brady's
appreciate the well actually on that. Yeah, Brady's still got to go through the process, right? He's still got to go through the ringer of you and 49 of your friends.
Where the presenter Ron Borges doesn't even need to stay up. They'll say Tom Brady, and we'll say shut up. Next candidate.
Are there any other
time?
Are there any other eligible ones, John, or not soon to be eligible ones, like retired? We know that they're coming up that are like that it's just like,
well, I hope
Tom Brady.
Watt. I hope they don't want me to recite everything on Watt. I will.
Yeah.
But he should be a lock, he and Brady.
Yeah, he and Brady. And I guess that's it as far as like retired guys floating around.
Brady's going to make it.
Yeah. Assuming you're right. I'm not looking forward to all those Boston people up at JJ's induction. I wish JJ had just come back for a game this year just to push it back one more year.
Maybe get all those Wisconsin people to come as well as.
I'll hang out with them. I like them. Drink that spotted cow or whatever it is JJ likes to drink. Spotted cow. All right, you ready to do some mailbag here, John?
Let's do it.
All right, mailbag. HOUmailbag@gmail.com. We take your mailbag questions each and every week. We've got about a half dozen of them here. First one's from our guy Chris in the ATL in Atlanta. He says that for real or Fugazi. He's giving you a for real or Fugazi, John. I like that when the mailbag combines it. He said for real or Fugazi, the scramble and completion by Stroud to a diving Nico in their last scoring drive on 2nd and 14 was the most impressive play of the season by CJ Stroud.
I mean, boy, I will say for real because I can't go back over the whole season.
People have marveled at that as much as anything this year. It's right there in the comments.
Of the play that Watson made in the playoffs against Buffalo when he got sandwiched and completed the pass, and the one where he got kicked in the eye against the Raiders and threw the touchdown pass. That play was not a touchdown, of course, but it was amazing. Some people thought he threw it away. I did when he threw it. But listening to him explain where he was throwing to a spot when he saw Nico lean to turning right, and it worked out perfectly.
Yep, Nico described it on the post game with us. He said, yeah, man, just scramble drill. Saw my guy throw it up. I said, hey, I think I can go get that. And he went and got it. We asked Nick this same question today. I asked him, I said, hey, if I played word association and I said, 6 CJ Stroud throw, like a badass CJ Stroud throw, what's the first one that pops into your head? And he thought, and he said, well, I mean, the one to open the game on Saturday was basically like a 75-yard handoff is what he said. The one to Nico Collins. It was so well thrown. The other one he added to it when he had a chance to think about it was the first Jacksonville game early in the game, the one that CJ dropped in the bucket in between 3 defenders to Tank Dell down at the goal line there. That
was a great one.
That was a great one because and I'll tell you why that one was important, John. The Texans were 0-2 at the time. And that was still early in that Jacksonville game. And if you remember in that Jacksonville game, Calvin Ridley dropped a touchdown pass. Otherwise, Jacksonville goes up 7-0 in that game. And maybe that game starts to play out a little bit differently. But he dropped the pass. The Jags don't score. And then that allowed the Texans to take a lead in that game. And they led the whole day after that. So I thought it was a really good answer. Chris also says I'm throwing in a fun for real or Fugazi. But John probably already covered it. Steichen not handing the ball off to Taylor on 4th and 1 is one of the dumbest things that John has ever seen. I sure as hell thought so, he says. For real or Fugazi?
I think that's for real, even though they had done better run defense in the fourth quarter and Taylor was hurting. The fact of the matter is he is their best player, and you took the ball out of the best player's hands and you put it into a quarterback who wasn't playing very well. They had great control of Gardner Minshew. And you throw it to a running back who had 6 catches in the year. And yes, it was open. And yes, he should have caught it. But the reason he didn't, because they went with the wrong guy.
Yep. All right, John. This is from Hector. He says, if you were Bobby Slowik, which of the job openings would you be going after the hardest? Which one would you already know going into the interview? I'm not saying yes to these guys. So like each end of the spectrum of the 6 openings, and I guess just for the purposes of the audience, for the audience's sake, the 6 openings right now are Carolina, Las Vegas, the Chargers, Washington, Atlanta, and as of about an hour or two ago, Tennessee. Those are the 6 openings that currently exist. Which one would you be going after the hardest if you were Bobby Slowik?
Justin Herbert and the Chargers, because they do have Justin Herbert. And yes, they have cap issues, but you can always work those out. The second one would be Atlanta. Falcons have a good defense. They have a really good running game, and they have some good skill position players. They need one position, a quarterback, and there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks available, whether they're in the draft or veterans moving around. And that would be my second choice after the Chargers.
And I think Arthur Blank feels like a decent owner, right? I mean, they haven't had a ton of success. Yeah, but he lets his guys do their thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Stays out of it, class act.
Yep. I think the second question, which one, if you were Bobby Slowik, could you already know going into the interview? I'm definitely not saying yes to these guys, but you're just doing the interview to do the interview. I think we covered that. That's got to be Carolina, right?
And that would be Carolina. All young guys might be using that one.
Yep, absolutely. All right, our guy JR in Spicewood checks in. Hey, guys, great win. I'm going to need plastic surgery to remove the smile from my face. That being said, we have to do a better job of not getting stupid penalties. Mr. I'm all pro, Laramie Tunsil, cannot continue to shoot the team in the foot. If he is as good as he says he is, he shouldn't need to jump before the snap. Love the show. Welcome to the playoffs. So, yeah, that's I think I had that right. Is that
JP? Not all pro. The all pro team hadn't come out and won until the Super Bowl. When you're
right. No, he was saying on In the Loop he should be all pro. Laramie Tunsil was.
Yeah. Well,
is that what
that is? Pro Bowl and players don't put as much stock in that like they used to. Yeah. They put it into the all pro team. That's where most of their bonuses come from. It's a 50-man panel of writers, former coaches, general managers, players who are in the media who vote on that. And that is much more accurate and more prestigious. And I don't know if Laramie, I don't think he's been first team all pro. He might've been second, but to me, you're either first team or you're not. Yeah. So I think one of the reasons he does that, he's trying to overcompensate in that game because he's got a knee and a groin injury, but it's been an issue for him forever. And he's trying to get the jump on the, usually the opponent's best pass rusher.
All right. I got 3 more, John. Ryan from the Shug. I think the Shug is Sugarland, but I like that. The Shug. The Shug.
The land, but that's Cleveland.
Yeah. Right. The Shug. He says, you guys are the real MVPs. Thanks for a great season of the Houtopia podcast. You're welcome, Ryan. He says, the Texans made the playoffs. He said, the Texans made the playoffs, exclamation point. There you go. Okay. He said, I'm thinking back to Sean after the Titans game when Dalton Schultz grabbed the ball out of the defender's hands. Paraphrasing here, but I think Sean said, looking back, this might have been a season-saving catch, end quote. Just pause on that. It may have been, in retrospect, a season-saving catch. Now that it took 9-8 wouldn't have gotten them into the playoffs. He says, what would you say are 3 season-saving plays from this past year? He says, I got tickets to the game on Saturday. Hopefully we don't see any orange in NRD. Let's go Texans. John, can you, other than the Dalton Schultz catch, do you have other plays that come into mind for you? I've got a couple that pop into my head.
I think that pass to Nico Collins, in which he should have been sacked and he ran around back there for the first down. I think that was a great one. Another one he was great because they don't show this on TV, but like on the Nico Collins touchdown pass, he got clobbered.
Yes.
As soon as he threw the ball, he was clobbered. He knew the guy was coming. At the one down the middle, on the winning drive, he got clobbered again. He just threw a rocket.
He's so
Collins, who
tough.
had the horse collar tackle. To me, the play to Nico on the sideline, the play to Dalton Schultz where he did take it away from the guy, that was a humongous play by him. And I'm trying to think. They had Kaimi Fairbairn's 54-yard field goal at the end of overtime to beat the Titans, or they wouldn't be in the playoffs.
Yep. Yeah. Or it would have finished in a tie, and it would have been a little harder to make the playoffs for sure. I had three that popped into my head just reading this question. One is not the touchdown to Tank Dell in the Tampa Bay game at the end, but the play before it that set up the touchdown was, one of the most incredible throws of the season from Stroud to Dell getting into that little soft spot in between the safety and the corner and setting up that touchdown in the last 15 seconds of a game where if they lose that game, then they're 3-5 to start the season, which is 3-5, a lot different than 4-4 to start the season. So I think of that really, both of those Dell plays at the end. Cincinnati, the play to Noah Brown to set up, what was the kid's name? Manicotti, Amendola. Remember the play to Noah Brown to set up the field goal, John, where Noah Brown caught it and broke a couple tackles and got about 10 extra yards to make it a much more makeable field goal.
Yep.
I think that one, and I think the Jimmy Ward interception to close out the Denver game was a save the season play too. You're tied with Denver in the standings. You're 6-5 in that game. 7-5, so much different than 6-6 at that stage of the season. But what a great question. That is, and John, it goes to show you that you and I are coming up with a half dozen of them like this. Goes to show you, A, just how many close games they played in, and B, just how competitive they were this year. This has been fun. They've been in the playoff hunt all year long, and they wake up division champions after week 18.
I'm going to make a column out of that once the season is over.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, two more, John. Griff in Midtown. Of the following possibly available QBs this offseason, which do you think will be most sought after? Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins, Justin Fields, Kyler Murray.
Kyler Murray's not going to be available. They've already said they're keeping him. I think Justin Fields will be traded, but Kirk Cousins has done things those other guys have never done. And they're talking about trying to keep him in Minnesota, and he's trying to figure if he wants a hometown discount because he's made so much money. And but I would say Kirk Cousins.
Cousins of those three? Yeah. I would say he's a free agent, right, John? Cousins?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I'd say Fields only because I think a team might trade for Fields if the Bears are of mind to take Caleb Williams. Do you think Fields gets traded this offseason, John?
I do. Yeah. He's got one more year, and if he does well, you got to sign him to a monster contract where you can take Caleb Williams or Drake May, and you got him for 4 years or 3 if you wanted to sign him to an extension early, and you don't wait to pick up the 5th-year option.
Yeah.
I think, yes, they're going that way. And Fields threw for 100-something yards Sunday, and he just is not consistent. All these people around the country, they keep the Justin Fields I keep hearing people talking about is not the one I'm reading about. And I have to admit, I don't watch him play, but they're talking about that Caleb Williams could be one of the all-time top prospects. Justin Fields is not.
No. I'm skeptical about any QB who's a throwing QB going to Chicago, though. That's a horrible
That's the
place
truth. It's a terrible place. That's why they don't ever have a guy going back throughout their history. They've never had a great touchdown passing quarterback who threw a lot of touchdown passes.
Yeah. If Caleb Williams' camp has made as much noise as any top quarterback about being choosy about where they, not choosy because they don't really choose, but at least like raising a ruckus in trying to get to the right place. I would do it to not go to Chicago if I were him. If you're of mind to try to manipulate where you go, if Chicago has the first pick, then you better press that button and go ahead and start manipulating. You know what I mean?
Or you tell them, I'll be happy to come there, but I want that new stadium to have a roof on it.
Yeah. Oh, can you imagine? Caleb Williams gets a roof on the stadium, and then he becomes a bust.
That would be a difference maker.
Yep. All right, last one, John. This is from Frank. He said the Texans' schedule got a whole lot harder with them winning the AFC South. They pick up Baltimore, Kansas City, and Dallas on next year's schedule. Where do you guys fall in that dynamic? Are you more excited about the marquee games, or are you more nervous that there's a few more losses possibly on the schedule? John, which school of thought are you when it comes to playing a first-place schedule?
Well, first of all, I'm not even thinking about that. I'm thinking about the playoffs and the Browns, and yes, it's going to be a lot tougher, and they can be a better team and have a lesser record. When they played in 2020, that first 4 games were brutal. And then O'Brien got fired because they kept getting pounded. And then they played Jacksonville. Romeo Crennel won. But it depends on how they line them up. Arizona was the extra game this year. Now they get a trip to Arlington against the Cowboys as the extra game because they're playing the NFC North. But if you want to win and you want to be a big boy, you got to play with a big boy. So why not? They're going to have so many primetime games, and I would love to see them playing on at 3:30 on Thanksgiving afternoon. Cowboys, Texans, Dak Prescott, C.J. Stroud.
Don't tempt me with a good time, John. I'll put this in perspective. By the way, Frank, I'm in the excited about the marquee games category. I love looking at. If you have a good enough team, you're going to win your share of games. Let's go have some fun and watch some big marquee matchups. Get some primetime games. Get some crowds back in the stadium. All that stuff. John, I'll put this in perspective for you because it's not just that they play a really hard schedule next year. They played a pretty easy schedule this year. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just, hey, it's hard this year, but it's a little harder. It's like, no, you were playing like like the equivalent of
one of the three easiest in the NFL.
Yeah, you're playing like a group of 5 schedule this year, and now you're in the SEC next year is what it is, kind of. So who would you say? I would say the best quarterbacks the Texans played this year were Lamar Jackson for sure, Joe Burrow for sure. Who's the third best quarterback they played this year, do you think? And I'll just fire some names out there.
Trevor Lawrence.
You think it's Trevor Lawrence? Okay.
I can't remember who else they played.
Baker Mayfield. They played Russell Wilson. They played Bryce Young. They played Desmond Ridder. Derek Carr. They played Derek Carr, John. Ooh, Derek Carr. They played Gardner Minshew a couple of times. They played Will Levis a couple of times. They played Joe Flacco down the stretch. Point being, they played a schedule this year where the third best quarterback they played, let's say it's Trevor Lawrence, lost 5 of 6 down the stretch and is being vilified in his city right now. That's the third best quarterback they played on their schedule this year. Next season, John, they play all 3 Pro Bowl quarterbacks from the AFC, Lamar Jackson, Tua, and Patrick Mahomes. Oh, yeah, and the first alternate, Josh Allen. They play all 4 of those guys. Oh, yeah, who else do they play? Aaron Rodgers, Dak Prescott. Who am I missing? Let's see. They cross over. Oh, Jared Goff. He's pretty good. He's been really good. Jordan Love, 18 touchdowns, 1 interception the second half of the year.
Caleb Williams with the Bears.
It could be Caleb Williams with the Bears. Yeah. Or if Caleb Williams or Justin Fields, either one of them are, are competent or, we don't know what Williams is, but it'll be exciting for him to come to NRG Stadium. My point being with all this is that the 8th best quarterback they play next year might easily be the 3rd best quarterback they would have played this year. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy.
They lost to Zach Wilson, Desmond Ridder, and Bryce Young.
They sure did. They got to tighten that up next year for sure. All right, John, that's it. What do you got going on the website?
I'm doing a column on Wednesday for Flacco versus Stroud, old versus new. I've got one up there. I've actually got 2 up there. Of course, we'll post our 3 Houtopia football podcasts this week. And then on Friday, I'll have 5 things to watch in a game versus the Browns, which I think will look a whole lot different than the game on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, it better. Yeah. So we got our episode on Thursday. You got all that stuff on the website, sportsradio610.com. And John, we've got the Texans countdown coming up on Saturday afternoon. I'm doing the math. The kickoff at 3:30, which means you'll be joining us probably like around 2:45 or so.
I look forward to it.
Yeah, if you're listening to
sunshine,
I think it should be. Yeah, if you're going out to the game, stop by and say hello. John's going to be out there chopping it up with me and Seth in the pregame. We got playoff football in Houston. I can't believe it. This is awesome. All right, John, good stuff. Enjoyed it as always.
Thank you very much, Sean.
All right. Big thanks to James Jackson, our producer, for getting the podcast out to all you guys so very, very quickly, putting up all the content, all the video content that you see. Maybe you stream the podcast on YouTube. If you do, that's great. If you get your podcast sent to you on your phone or whatever device you listen to the podcast on, click the subscribe button if you don't already. We appreciate that. Tell a friend to click the subscribe button, especially if they're a Texans fan. This is an exciting time of year to be a Houston Texans fan. So for James and John, I'm Sean. We are out of time. We will see all of you on Thursday for the next episode of the Houtopia Football Podcast. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below.
Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest updates. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.